Hi there, my name's Finch and I'm a Sims 4 builder and streamer on Twitch, and I'm just now dabbling into some speed builds. So, one of the latest speed build challenges that I wanted to tackle is by my friend s0ph. She's on Twitch and she just recently launched the Sweetheart Shell. And let me tell you, this thing was a beast. The heart-shaped room at the top was crazy. Roofing it was a blast. So you'll get to see through this experience that, yeah, I tried a few different styles of roofing, and yes, I struggled. So I am very much a neutral builder, meaning I like to use a lot of browns, yellows, oranges, beige, cream, white, and black. For this one, I really wanted to test out my skill set here and see what I could do. I mean, for me, I really wanted to make something that matched the name of the shell. So this shell is called the Sweetheart Shell. So in my mind, I'm like, what can fit this motif of the name? Then I got to thinking, do I want to make this commercial? Do I want to make it residential? And ultimately, I landed on doing a commercial build. I decided to do a wedding venue. So you're going to see me dabble with this roofing for a little bit because, in case you didn't know, roofing a heart-shaped room is a bit tricky. So I went through quite a few iterations of this roofing. But going back to the theme I decided to do, I really wanted to make something more pastel, something that really radiated that concept of a sweetheart, pinks, very floral, ornate, just looking like super cutesy, maybe a little girly. So I really dabbled with that. I'm not a big fan of pinks and purples, but for this build, I incorporated a ton of that. Especially this really pretty pink that this swatch came in the For Rent pack, and I was obsessed with it. These windows here too look really, really good sized up. I know you typically can't size up windows, but because they're closed, it worked just fine. So I really tried to create as much color as humanly possible. I really struggled with the windows on the second floor. I feel like every time that I would place them, I would end up making something that looked like a face. And I didn't really want that. So I decided to start dabbling with the Love Struck tiles. I really liked that I could use Tool and kind of manipulate and size them to where they looked like they were part of the wall. Hey, EA, please give this to me as a wallpaper, please. And then I wouldn't have to use Tool. But it worked out. I started to use it on the second floor, and I think the final result was really nice and really clean. So I just sized them up a little bit. I kind of dabbled with doing multiple layers on top of each other, but then I just ended up sizing them up. I didn't do it on every single wall because that would have been tedious and probably would look way too busy. But I liked doing it on the front. I think it gave like that very whimsical cottage pastel vibe. And there were a lot of swatches of pink that really came in handy for this build. I really, really enjoyed kind of experimenting and getting out of my comfort zone a little bit because if you've ever watched me on Twitch, I always use the same items. I always use the same windows, the same color palettes, and I really wanted to push my limits with this one. So I tried every variation of a colored window that I could think of, especially if it was pink or yellow. And I ultimately landed on a lot of stuff for rent. And Love Struck also gave me some good options too. At the front, I really wanted to do, instead of doing like just a clean wallpaper, I wanted to incorporate this tile here. I thought that it would look really, really cute, especially since it has a lot of pastel variations to it. So I played with that a ton. But I really think what was getting me the most was the roof. The roof was I could place it and I could get it figured out. But as soon as I started to need to put windows on it, it was game over. My brain just exploded. So you'll see me like going back and forth, taking away the roof, removing the roof, modifying my doors, trying to figure it out. But I ultimately landed on something that I liked. I ended up having to use quite a few round pieces. And if you know anything about me, you know that like round roofs are my enemy. but I kind of made it work. I flattened them out really thin, like a pancake kind of, and I was able to make it look like they were little grassy knolls on top of the roof. So it just took me a second. It took me probably, the speed build doesn't give it justice. That probably took me a good hour and a half to be like, how am I going to make this work for me? But I finally got it to work. And the fact that there's a roof swatch that has the grass on it, I was able to figure it out. And once I did that, then it was game over. I was able to really, really get the ball rolling. The roof was definitely the hardest part. And I also just figuring out how to do, like, make it more of a entrance would be on the second floor kind of came to me right away. So that kind of worked in my favor for those windows that are on that first floor. And honestly, the way that I set it up, the first floor doesn't need that much natural lighting anyway. The second floor is more of our dining hall space for this wedding venue. So, and I know that my wedding stories is very, very broken. And it's not as fun to do weddings, but I have been experimenting with gameplay a little bit, and I've had some fun with it. If you can get past the fact that sometimes your Sims are going to sit in the middle of your aisle and they're going to get stuck in certain positions and they don't do exactly what you tell them to do, as long as you can grapple with that, then it's fine. So I wanted to make a wedding venue. It's completely functional. Everything works. I play tested it and everything worked beautifully. So I didn't have to change much for that reason. And you'll see me, I'll go back and forth between the interior and exterior. I feel like if I do the interior straight through, I get really burnt out. So I like to go back and forth with it. So the second floor, that heart-shaped room, I kind of wanted to maintain like a little heart shape within the tiling. So I did this nice blue. I mean, it's not perfect. It doesn't look like a perfect heart, but it does what it needs to do. So I decided that I wanted this to be my dining space. Little dining hall, put some buffet tables up here, and this is where they can have their reception. It's kind of a small room, and I didn't realize how small it was until I started putting longer tables in. But you have these little buffet tables, so it's not going to be like a grand, like 100+ sim wedding, but it was still really cute, and you can still like move some things around. I kind of shifted everything to where they were kind of diagonal to line up with the heart shape. Love these windows as well. I think, even though I really, really wish that the closed windows could be functional and you could open them, I think they look really, really nice. So this room right here, my kitchen, I just kind of made it work to where if your sim needs to cook something, if they need to cook a meal and they didn't bring it with them, or if they have a caterer, then they have a spot to make your cake, all of that good stuff. But it's not really a room that you need to hang in for very long. So that's available for them to make some items in and kind of cater to the rest of the party. I find myself really, really liking the tiles from the For Rent pack. I think that they're gorgeous. And I also used a lot of the Riviera kit that came out as well. The Bistro kit has fantastic tiles. I feel like over the last 4 or 5 DLCs, we have had amazing build content come through, and I really started to notice it with For Rent. I feel like that is where they really matched my energy of what I needed in my builds. So I have been having such a blast using a lot of the tile combos that we've been getting. The only downside to this shell, because it is small, I really wanted to have a little bit more of a dressing room setup and more bathroom space, but I mean, it's a shell at the end of the day. So for those of you that don't know what a shell is, a content creator can give you this shell. So s0ph gave us the exterior to work with as well, and she did the roofing too. It was optional. I like to do my own roofing, so I took it off, But essentially, you have to meet the confines of the exterior walls. You can't add new walls. You have to work within the perimeter of whatever they create for you. Sometimes your content creators will give you pack restrictions. They'll give you themes. s0ph didn't really give us a theme for this one. It was titled The Sweetheart Shell, so it really had a Lovestruck vibe to it. And so, in knowing her style, I was like, I think that pastel would be really fun. Unfortunately, I did not submit this on time, so I didn't get to do it for tours where she does that on Twitch, and her Twitch link is in my bio as well. I highly recommend giving her a view if you haven't heard of her already. She's fantastic. So I didn't get to do mine as a tour, but I told her, I'm like, hey, I did do it, and it was a lot of fun, and I loved kind of like testing my limits. So this room right here is my dressing room. So I kind of used, it's not functional, but we have a slat in front of the mirror where your sim could theoretically stand up on there, on the little platform as they're getting dressed. So the exteriors are always my favorite. So I really wanted to have lots of flowers. Obviously you can tell from, the way that my build is looking right now that flowers are my favorite. And I just wanted to have a pond somewhere where they could hang out and have like some wildlife stuff like that whenever you're there. There is a wedding venue that's near me that's very like stuck in the woods, very whimsical. And I was kind of going with that vibe as well, like being one with nature in this wedding venue space. And I don't make a lot of ponds that often. I still feel like I'm getting used to them even being an option whenever we build. So sometimes I'll find myself like building a pool and I'm like, oh, you don't need to do that. So I really enjoyed like kind of nesting one in the corner. This lot in Henford is so good. It's Cordelia's cottage. It's small enough and the backdrop to it is just so gorgeous. And I was like, I have to build here. Not to mention the lighting on this lot is a 10 out of 10. So I really, really enjoyed building on it. It's one of my favorite lots to build on in Henford. That neighborhood in general, they knocked out of the park with all of our lot types. So, so good. So I didn't want to use a traditional fence because obviously, as we know, the fences don't allow you to go to the very edge of the lot. So instead, I took these bushes to kind of create a fence. And then I just started kind of pulling some things from my wedding stories that I really liked, like this pergola here. I thought would be like a nice little canopy, and I could start building some flowers on the roof as well that kind of extend off of it. So I really thought that turned out really great. And that window from Realm of Magic, so good. I love it. It turned out perfect. It fit exactly what I needed, and it gives a little bit more light to the second floor. Yeah, then again, lots of flowers. I really wanted to make it look very floral. Like you walk outside and you can smell the flowers, bumblebees, all of that good stuff. This canopy here, I was going to use for like a reception area, but at the end I was like, I'm just going to use it as like a little canopy for people to sit and just enjoy. And as soon as I started playtesting, one of the very first things that my Sims would do, especially if they were a couple, is they would sit on that couch and they would do that new animation where they'll like sky gaze with each other and just kind of look out and point at the sky, and it was so cute. You'll see that whenever we do the tour at the end. It is so whimsical and so lovely. And I wanted them to have a little nice place to sit and look out at the pond. This is such a cozy, and I feel like this is an intimate, quiet wedding venue. Not something that you would invite like hundreds of people, but just something really cozy and nice. So I decided to put the archway on the corner. Once again, wanted to fill it with flowers, make it look so floral and pretty, and have a good amount of space. Because this corner right here, I had plenty of area to put a bunch of chairs and stuff like that. So I just experimented with what flowers looked good and just kind of made it look like it was part of the landscape. And I had to put some chairs out, make them kind of at an angle. So getting all of those set up, doing a little pathway where the aisle was going to go, and do this little backdrop behind with the pink. I thought that looked really pretty behind it. Ultimately, I think it turned out. It was really, really fun to play test with it. My Sims seemed, because it was such a small build, sometimes I've noticed that with big builds, my Sims will get lost and will not complete animations in a timely manner. So I did my best to make sure that it was small enough. They didn't have to travel really far from one place to another. And the shell really helped with that to prevent me from like them getting lost in the shuffle, if you will. And I just think I never did a traditional wedding for myself, but if I did, like something like this would be perfect. So cozy. And it just seems like such a quiet, calm place for your Sims to get married. It'll be really, really nice. I'm eager to see how it looks when other people play with it. So the inside, like I mentioned before, I really just wanted to make sure that there was a dance floor. I wanted that to be a center point and to have a bar. I didn't want anything like crazy large, but I wanted to give them a little short bar that they could go to and maybe one table just to, you know, have somewhere to go. I was trying to think of all of the things that you would want to have for your wedding. The only feature I don't typically do is the tea feature. That's something I probably could have added into the kitchen, but I totally spaced and didn't think about it until after it was posted on the gallery. But everything for the most part that you would want to do at a wedding is here. And I love these little oak wine chests. They're so cute. And yeah, just kind of added a little table here. Made it to where if someone wanted to sit and chill, get away from the crowd, all of that good stuff, then they could hang here. So the one detriment to building a dance floor style in here was the DJ tables are not very classy looking and they're very big. So I just had to kind of compromise and get a black DJ table. I mean, that's the reality of it. Most DJs are going to have like, it'll be black and gray, whatever. So kind of compromise with that, but I think it turned out okay. And to kind of tie a bow on the outside, I decided to make a bunch of wildflowers, like patches of them in the front. I thought that they were so gorgeous and they're so big and they're textured lovely. So I really enjoyed kind of putting patches of that in the build. I also did this little hack where I take the eraser tool and I go to the very bottom of transparency and just kind of like wiggled it gently over my pathway so it looks a little more walked on, because I feel like whenever I put it on, it looks like it was freshly paved, and that's not really the look I'm going for. So doing that little eraser tool can really help. And of course, I always make sure that my lighting at night is going to be well lit enough because weddings are going to take place in the evenings too, especially receptions. So wanted to make sure that it was well lit, especially if you took photos, you would be able to see your Sims and it would look nice. So yeah, I think that's really what I wanted to focus on. That's typically how I will wrap up my builds, is I'll just make sure that they look okay in the evening. That's kind of one of those pieces that I never like to forget. And of course I needed the fountain. The fountain is fantastic. And in live mode, it looks amazing. So put some candles in there, made it lit up in different colors. This fountain is textured so beautifully. It is such a perfect romantic, very, very cutesy fountain that you can put there. And I had to kind of pair, like I wanted to have the wildflowers kind of going across. So I really layered my wildflowers and stuff